I'm Anna with Always Right, and welcome back to the 12 Days of Christmas. Today's video is going to be talking about the differences of Wattpad, self-published, and traditionally published books on the writing side, as well as a little bit on the reading side. We're mixing it up. Now, this is a great video if you are considering getting into writing and you don't really know where to go. So welcome. You may be wondering, like, girl, what are you doing on the floor with your little toesies out and socks, granted, but with wrapping paper by you? It's after Christmas. For me, it's not. It is 9:40 on Christmas Eve, and I've got like a whole bag, a whole giant boxy boy, and I've got to get this wrapped. That's what this video is gonna be. It's gonna be me trying to talk to you about writing and publishing on Wattpad, writing and publishing the self-published route, and writing and publishing the traditional publishing route, as well as kind of like what to expect reading any of those routes. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Yeah, I'm having to reuse boxes. Those, they're not Blair Witching, but they're not presents. Like, one of them's a lead. Might be a present, but it's not this year. I think I'm gonna start on some smaller presents. That'll be the grand finale. I got 4 different rolls of paper, and we're really at the whim of how much / how little I have left on the rolls. So, let's talk about Wattpad while conveniently wrapping a traditionally published novel. The quick and dirty of Wattpad, it is kind of like a social media site where people can post stories and they can read stories. And primarily, it's free, which is great for a lot of people, especially kids. God, I sound like I'm already 50 or 60. Kids being, teenagers or individuals that just don't have their own wealth, essentially. Now that you know that kind of tidbit, you may be thinking, Wattpad is like a website where you can post almost whatever you want. I haven't read Wattpad's terms of service in a hot second, granted, but my understanding, especially when I was younger, is that you could pretty much post whatever you want. And you can post fan fiction there. It's great. That's actually how I got into Wattpad, was fan fiction. But it's not just for fan fiction anymore. As you may know, Wattpad does offer a chance or an opportunity for some of its authors to get paid. If you're sitting there going, I think I could write for Wattpad, what do I need to do? Essentially, your upload schedule, if you're gonna be writing for Wattpad, is gonna be like a chapter a week, or a chapter every 3 or 4 days. Like, you may have regular uploads on like Tuesday and Friday, but you need to have pretty much regular uploads, because that'll help people know when to come back to read your story. If you notice there, it was regular chapter uploads. That means you don't have to have the whole book written. You just have to have 1 chapter that week, which is great. Wattpad is a great tool if you are an aspiring author and you don't know where to start, but you just know you want to write. It is great in that sense, because it gives you an outlet for your stories without, putting the pressure of having to publish said stories. You're just writing it. And honestly, writing the story is still pretty hard. There's a reason most people don't finish their novels. It's because they get overwhelmed with the writing. But with Wattpad, you can really piecemeal out your writing schedule, which means you can just literally write and publish as you go. You don't even have to have a once a week upload or like super regular uploads. You can just be like, hey, I wrote a chapter. Here's the chapter, baby. Awesome. And another really good thing about Wattpad is that it has a lot of readers. You need to know, though, going into it, that your readers are often going to be on the younger spectrum. But you shouldn't be expecting your college professors to be reading those works. And like I said, there is potential for some money on Wattpad. You can make money through their partner program, or you can make money through their like publishing program. Once again, this is pretty much exclusively for original content. So fanfic, not likely. Another great thing about Wattpad, and take this with like a grain of salt if you will, there really is a low standard on Wattpad. You don't have to believe in punctuation. You don't have to believe in the enter key. Punctuation, you can write a story and publish it on Wattpad with 0 punctuation. And you might get like a reader or 2. It's insane. It's a weird, weird world. My advice, don't do that. Don't write a story with 0 punctuation, with 0 paragraph breaks. There's a reason that those are in place, especially if you're starting out. Try and obey those rules until you know when and how to break them. And with that low standard means ease of access. You can write Wattpad stories on your phone. You can write literally anything on your phone, if I'm being frank with you. You don't have to have a fancy computer to write for Wattpad. You don't have to have a fancy computer to write for self-published or traditionally published. And Wattpad can be a lot of fun. Like I said at the beginning of the description for Wattpad, it is essentially like a social media site for readers. It is awesome. It is fun. You can do a lot of stuff. I didn't put a name on this. There's also pretty good communities revolving around fan fiction and different kind of genres like werewolf, vampire. However, if you do write for Wattpad, you have a very, very high risk of piracy. There's a reason you don't see traditionally published or self-published authors on Wattpad very often. Not even like using it to promote their books that much. And that's because there is an insanely high rate of piracy. There is nothing truly stopping someone from reading your story, going, wait a minute, this could make money, stealing it off of Wattpad, and then uploading it to Kindle or like Amazon or whatever and claiming it as their own. Like, yes, there are copyright laws, but lawyers are very expensive. They are very expensive. And the person you're gonna be suing probably doesn't have a lot of money. So the lawyer's not gonna be too keen to take it. So keep that in mind. That's definitely something to remember. Now, as for like the kind of writing schedule you could expect being a Wattpad author, you can give it as much or as little as you want, which is essentially true for all of the publication formats listed here. But if I would describe Wattpad, I would describe it as more of a light writing schedule, because you are just kind of doing a light writing schedule, which is not bad. Like I said, it's great to practice. It's great to learn the process and just get better at the craft. Writing only gets easier the more you do it. But I will tell you, and this is just like from one writer to another, Wattpad does not really let you work on your editing skills or your foreshadowing skills or blah, 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 whatever. You're kind of SOL on that because, like I said at the beginning, you're publishing to Wattpad basically one chapter at a time. That doesn't allow you to edit like you should if you are doing the other 2 forms of publishing. Now, let's move on, because we've talked about Wattpad for a lot longer than I thought we would. Self-publishing and traditional publishing are quite different from Wattpad. Now you may be looking at me like, how? And the main reason is for self-publishing and traditional publishing, you usually have to have a final product. You can't just piecemeal it out. You can't just be like, here's a chapter this week. People aren't gonna buy it. For self-publishing and traditional publishing, like I said, you're gonna need a finished product. You're gonna need either that novel done, or you're gonna need the novella or that book of poetry, whatever you're working on has to be done for you to be able to kind of release it into the world. But self-publishing is very similar to Wattpad in other ways. Self-publishing doesn't have any real barriers to publishing. Like, essentially you can write whatever you want and you can just click that like upload and publish button on Amazon And look at you. You published, you did it. You've won the rat race, whatever you want to call it. Another way that self-publishing is similar to Wattpad, you can really give as much or as little effort as you want. There's no like Gestapo, there's no police sitting on Kindle Unlimited going up. No. You only did this in a week. How dare you? You're not allowed. You have to at least spend a month on it or whatever. Amazon is happy to have your book. Of course, the truly biggest difference from Wattpad is you're published. You're officially published. That doesn't mean you're gonna sell any books, but you know what? You're published. And with self-publishing, there is potential for profit. Now, I'm going to emphasize that one more time for you. There is potential for profit. Uploading a book to Amazon or Kindle or whatever the heck you're using does not guarantee money. There's actually a lot of costs that go into self-publishing. There's a lot of work that you don't see as just a reader, or you don't really recognize as a reader. And you're gonna be doing all of it if you're self-published. But you can be technically a best-selling author if you're self-published. It's awesome. Speaking of self-published, I'm pretty sure this was originally self-published. Another pretty big difference between self-published and like Wattpad published, you know, like posting on Wattpad, is that there are standards. Like, I know I just got done saying, hey, you know, there's not really that standard. You can give as much or as little as you want. But if you want to be successful at it, people on Kindle aren't as willing to like hold your hand and baby you. They're expecting a finished product. They usually paid something for it, or you know, they're using one of their Kindle Unlimited slots for your book. So they're expecting some level of quality. Now, I'm not gonna say that Kindle Unlimited books are the standard to follow, you know, that self-published books are all 100% just like stunning, spectacular, well-edited. They're usually not, but there is still some expectation. It's not like Wattpad, where you can just get away with just publishing something with no punctuation, no paragraphs. You have to play a little by the rules if you're gonna be self-publishing. Another thing about writing and intending to self-publish is that there's a huge learning curve when it comes to self-publishing. I'm not just talking about, you know, like, oh, you gotta learn how to write, you gotta learn how to edit. That's also a huge learning curve. Those are huge elements, but there's just a huge learning curve in the process. There's just so much you have to learn if you want to do it the quote right way. And the reason I'm putting right way in quotes is, you, like I said, you can do as little or as much as you want. I've seen some absolutely terrible book covers on Kindle, like AKA like self-published. I've seen some that compete and even beat out traditionally published covers. It's up to you, boo-boo, how much you want to do. If you are aiming to do this to be successful, to make some money, you gotta learn, and you gotta learn fast. And if you're just wanting to write a book and claim that you're published, that's fine. You don't have to follow this. But if you're looking to make a career as a self-published author, or make some decent money, or money in general, as a self-published author, you gotta be limber, you gotta be fast. One of the first, however, /cons is that if you're gonna be self-publishing, you're probably gonna be publishing on like Amazon or something like that. And Amazon is pretty notorious for being volatile. Like, people lose, and I'm not trying to scare you away, I'm just letting you know so that you're not like totally sideswiped. They lose their access to their like Kindle author accounts and stuff like that regularly. Next kind of con is that there's a lot of competition. I know, you're shocked. There's a lot of competition. It doesn't really matter what you write, there's competition. And if you think that you're super original and you're lucky enough to be super original, there will be competition within like a month, maybe even sooner. Because there's so much competition, writing and publishing for you is going to be super fast paced, so that you're staying up to date with the trends, you're keeping your readers engaged. Another kind of like not great thing that people don't think about when they first start self-publishing is that your sales / reads will essentially ramp. You may have a few readers at the beginning, but if you don't have what's called like a backlog of books, there's not a whole lot for people to buy or read from you, because a lot of your money is going to be coming from people finding you through like one book and then going, hey, I like this author, I want to read more from them. And then just kind of reading what's called your backlog. Another kind of, however, con moment is that when you start self-publishing, not even just publishing to Amazon or Kindle or whatever, you're gonna need a lot of patience and a lot of luck. Next kind of, however, con moment is you might not even break even on any book, or your first book, or that book, or your third book, There's a good chance you won't break even. And when I say break even, I mean taking into account the cost of your cover designer, the cost of, your editing. You need to have it edited, by the way. But there's a really good chance that you won't even make enough sales or get enough page reads from KU, Kindle Unlimited, to get back those costs. Then the last one is that low readership may bring you down. Like I said, usually it takes a hot second for people to find your books, for Kindle to start recommending your books, figuring out where you fit in the algorithm. So just know that. If I had to classify the writing schedule for self-published novels, I'm thinking like the career self-published novels, like writing 3 or 4 books a year, publishing 3 or 4 books a year, whatever. I would say it's a high demand writing schedule. And it doesn't have to be. Once again, one of the very first things I said is that you can put as much or as little as you want into it. And that statement still stands. Like, really, you can do as much or as little, but if you're wanting to do it as a career, wanting to make some decent money or make money, it is going to be a high demand writing schedule. Traditional publishing time. Traditional publishing novels is very similar to self-publishing in the sense that you can't just publish chapter by chapter. No. You have to finish a novel, edit it, get it as clean as possible, and then you can take it out for querying. And if you already have an agent, you already have like book deals prior, then you just have to write it the best you can, go back, do a second draft, send it to your agent to see what they would recommend, and go from there. Traditional publication is very different from Wattpad and self-published in most other aspects. For traditionally published, there's major barriers. There's huge barriers. Now, I'm not gonna call them gatekeepers. Like, I know a lot of people like to call or like to think of agents and publishers as like gatekeepers, but that's not what I'm gonna call them. But essentially, you have to go through 2 series of checks. You gotta get your book approved and signed by an agent, aka like you as an author will sign with this agent. They will represent you going forward. Not necessarily like in perpetuity, but they will represent you for a hot second, As long as y'all are in that agreement, they'll represent you. And then once your agent gets it, they have to do their job and they have to approach the publishers and they've got to get your book sold. Another kind of factor to take in with traditionally publishing your novels or pursuing traditional publication, there's long publication times. You don't have to crank out 6 novels like that. It's usually like 1, maybe 2 novels a year. And then when you do get signed with an agent, you do get a publisher to, buy your publication rights and publish you. Then you still have to, I know there's more. Then you still have to work with them and edit the book and do X, Y, Z, and usually it takes between 2 and 3 years. It's a lot. It's really a lot to be traditionally published. You have to be patient, in other words. One benefit of having such a long publication period is that you will have a much cleaner product at the end of it. It's gonna be gorgeous, because it's not just gonna be your eyes, it's not just gonna be the editor that had time for you or whatever. It's like your agent's looking over it, your publisher's looking over it, your publisher's editors are looking over it. You're usually going to be in pretty good hands. And this is going to sound silly. You have a, quote, better chance for success because you are pretty much, I'm not going to say guaranteed to get paid, but you're guaranteed to get paid by the publisher when they buy your book. Another plus, and this is something that really, really draws me to traditionally publishing, is that you're gonna have minimal management associated with your book. And that sounds like really weird and really wordy. What I'm basically saying is you don't have to worry about the cover that much. You can make recommendations, X, Y, Z, but you don't have to worry about it that much. You also don't have to worry about your metadata. Like, there are people that do that. Your job, essentially, to my understanding, is to write the book, edit the book, and publicize, promote the book. I mean, there may be some other middle ground. You're not gonna have to go out and hire random editors off the street. The publisher should be doing that for you. Now on to kind of the cons. When I say kind of the cons, these are just not all-inclusive, but these are things to keep in mind. You're gonna have much more critical readers because you are published. You are traditionally published. You probably got paid some decent money for your book, and the readers have a much higher expectation for your novel, for your editing, for your prose. Another kind of, however, is you should not expect to just become a bestseller. Being traditionally published is great. It's very helpful. You're getting in front of more eyes potentially. There's still a crazy number of books that are traditionally published. So you do have competition, but it's not like you have competition in the sense that someone can turn around, take your fun, unique idea, and write a whole new book on it in a month's time. On to the reading side, so that you can kind of understand the mind of who you're writing to, and you're not just oblivious, because writing a book, you're still trying to sell a product at the end of the day, and that product is your book. Now, for Wattpad, you gotta remember that Wattpad is mostly free. There are some options where you can pay, to unlock chapters on some of the original content, but for the most part, Wattpad is free. And there's essentially endless content on Wattpad. This one story about a prince, looking for his princess, and so there's a camp or whatever, and there's a competition between the princesses to prove they're the best and win the prince's heart. And the first 10 chapters are available for free on Wattpad, but the rest of it you gotta pay $2.99 on Kindle to go get it on Amazon. You're gonna lose them. They're gonna go, no. I got more free shit over here. I don't have to pay this $2.99 for this. Now, I can guarantee you, not everything that is on Wattpad is good. Heck, not even half is probably decent, but it's free. People are willing to overlook quite a bit if something is free. And another thing about Wattpad is, as readers, you're there for fanfics. You're there for the moment. You're there for that trope. You're not necessarily there for a story that's got plot and blah, 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 blah. That has to pass all this stuff that Goodreads reviewers will ding them on. I mean, people is just writing for fun. And another thing about Wattpad readers is that they know their stories are piecemealed. They're not going into it expecting to have a completed novel, 500 chapters. They're okay with it just being once a week. Heck, television has proven that people are okay getting their story piece by piece over the course of a season. Now, let's talk about self-publish. When I think of a self-published author, but my mind instantly goes to Amazon. It instantly goes to Kindle, specifically Kindle Unlimited. Usually when I think self-published, and it's not always, once again, one thing that comes to mind is spicier books. Now, I know that Wattpad used to have like some spicy content on it. You know, it used to have some smut scenes, you know, all that fun. But when you think of KU, you usually think of like romance, or I do. And when I think of KU romance, I think of like sex scenes, like a scene number of sex scenes. You don't have to write spicy scenes. Usually when people hear KU, they hear self-published, they're thinking of the spice. Also what comes to mind for KU is a lot of kind of like niche content. What do I mean by that is like shifter stuff. There's like vampires and fae stuff. Like that is readily available. There's dragons. There's all sorts of very hyper-specific concepts that are then fleshed out into full-sized books. There's a lot of niches out there in KU, Kindle, Amazon, whatever. They have something for every niche. Now, one thing that a lot of Kindle KU readers do is that they may find an author they really like, and then they'll devour their backlog. That is a very common practice for Kindle readers, for self-published readers. And usually, like I said, in the writing section, a lot of KU authors are like hammering out books, especially at the beginning, so that they do have that backlog for people to, quote, discover and enjoy. And there's more options for consuming. So like Wattpad, you've got like the web browser, you've got the app, pretty sure that's about it. Self-published novels are almost always available as ebooks for e-readers or phones or web browsers or what the heck ever. They are often available in paperback, and they're rarely available in audio. And that's mainly because audiobooks are very expensive to produce. Another really cool thing about self-published books, especially on like Kindle and Amazon, is it's really easy to find books with similar tropes. Not just like the same niche, but similar tropes. They put it in the metadata, they put it everywhere, so it's really easy to find. Very similar to Wattpad, there's essentially an endless stream of content. People are constantly publishing new books, and they are completed books. That's the best part. Another thing that Kindle readers kind of come to expect is that most books will be part of a series. And that's because series sell. It's easy to continue on a story and bring readers back with characters that they love. If you read Kindle Unlimited, you'll know the books get longer as they go through the series, because Kindle Unlimited, they're paid like by the page read, like the total number of pages read. And another thing when you're thinking about KU readers is that there is a low risk associated with buying the books. You're not charging, hopefully, like $10 for an ebook. Usually the books are gonna be available through Kindle Unlimited, Prime Reading, or they're gonna be like $5 or under per book. So there's not really a whole lot of monetary investment associated with the books, which is great because that means that people are more willing to take chances on new authors, especially authors they've never heard of, authors that don't have a big backlog of books. It's amazing. It's great. It's like the best news you could have. Lastly, on to traditionally published books. And I'm gonna just get it out of the way right now. It's expensive to read most traditionally published novels. There is a high risk associated with buying novels. If you don't know, like a paperback for an adult fiction novel is close to $20, and now a hardback is like $35. There is a high risk associated with buying most traditionally published books. And with traditionally published books, readers kind of expect that not every series will get finished, which is really sad. And I'm not just talking about like the George R.R. Martins out there that are writing very slowly. Sometimes a book is supposed to be a trilogy, and the second one does so poorly that the publisher just says, you know what, we're not gonna even waste our time, waste our money getting the third one done. And so you're sitting there with like 2 out of 3 books published. Readers of traditionally published novels they just know, that it's gonna take a while for their favorite author to get their next book out, usually like a year to 3 years for the next one in the series to come out. And another thing to expect if you're reading traditionally published books or if you're writing them is that the trends will usually lag for traditionally published novels. If a book becomes really, really popular, like Twilight, it's gonna take a hot second for traditionally published authors to get kind of a copycat out. Not everyone can be the Maze Runner, you know? And I hate to say this because I don't mean this in a bad way towards self-published authors or books, but usually traditionally published books tend to be bigger, quote, slam dunks. They're better edited because they usually have a team working on them. They have better covers, they have better promo, blah, 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 like whatever. Because I mean, a good example of that is the Goodreads Choice Awards. Like, yeah, they added the romantasy section recently, but most of the other categories were dominated by traditionally published novels. I hope this video was helpful. This has taken a lot longer than it probably would have if I had separated these two tasks and done them like a normal human. This has just been a nice little chatty video. She has a bow. Oh, that's so tiny. Now, to wrap this up, thank you all so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. I think I've talked about, you know, the differences between Wattpad and self-publishing and traditionally publishing before, but I don't believe I've ever discussed it from the other side, the reader's perspective. I'm really happy with these little friendos. I wasn't expecting to find that many books to wrap. I'm gonna go put these in my car so I can take them tomorrow morning to my parents and give them to them. So, hope to see y'all in the next video. And as always, let's get writing. Bye!